And I'm back for language arts. So maybe you're seeing this after you've eaten lunch, and maybe you've done a little recess activity, or maybe you're doing it out of order today and it's the morning. Whatever the case is, it is a great thing that you are watching the video. The first thing I want to go over is some new vocab words that you are going to see in the new text that we are going to start this week and into some of next week. It is called All Summer in a Day. It is on HMH Ed and you will be reading it. It will be one of your assignments today, but we will go over that later. So we have a few new vocab words this week. As I say the word, I want you to say it as well so you know that you are saying it right. And then I'm going to go over the definition of it and the example sentence that it's in. So our first word is slackening. So say slackening. The definition for slackening is something that is slowing down. An example of slackening is the runners kept a steady pace for the first lap, but on the second lap they got tired, so their pace started slackening, right? So they were going at it, they're going steady for the first lap, but on the second lap they were kind of getting tired, so they were slowing down. They are slackening. Right? Our second word is frail. Something is frail if it is weak and easily broken. An example is, I cleaned the frail vase gently, as one rough motion could have shattered it. Right? Glass vase is weak and can be broken easily. Next, we have drenched. If something is drenched, it is soaking wet. Even though I was wearing a coat in the rain, my clothes were drenched all the way through. So the rain got his clothes soaking wet. Next, we have savagely. To do something savagely is to do it in a forceful and unfriendly way. An example is, the dog savagely tore into the steak, scattering pieces of meat everywhere as it ate. Right? So the dog forcefully tore into the steak, right? We can see how the sentence helps us define the word because it says it is the dog scattered pieces of meat. You're not going to scatter pieces of meat if you are eating it using manners. And then lastly, we have resilient. Something that is resilient is strong and recovers quickly. An example is, I keep forgetting to water that plant, but it is resilient, still blooming every year. So even though the owner of the plant doesn't water it, the plant is resilient, it is strong, and it keeps recovering every year to bloom. So here are some questions that I want you to think about while you are watching this and while you have the definition and an example up of these critical vocab words. The first one is, how can you measure if the speed of a car is slackening? Right? So how can you measure if the speed of the car is slowing down? What can you use to measure that? Think about that. So my first thought, because I am a driver, I do drive my car, or I do drive a car, is that I can look at the speedometer to know if my car is slackening, or you could take a speed gun and point it at a car to see if it is slackening. Next, how do you handle a frail object? How do you handle a frail object? When I think of a frail object, I think of it as being fragile. So if I have something fragile, I'm going to gently handle it. What is the weather like if you are drenched? Right, there's a couple different things that the weather could be like if you are drenched, and I think you have the answer to yourself. Next, why don't people appreciate it if you eat savagely? That's a great question. I would have loved to have heard your answers on that one. Think about that. And then lastly, what does it mean if a plant in the desert is resilient? All right, think about the desert, think about the weather and the environment of a desert. How would a plant be resilient in a desert? All right, so we will use and have an activity with those vocab words tomorrow. For today, we are going to move on to our next part of language arts. We are going to be talking about words with IE or EI. So in words that have the letters I and E together, the vowel team is usually pronounced with the long E sound. So IE and EI both usually have the E sound. Or if the word has an EI sound, or an EI together, it could have a long E sound, so it could sound E, or it could have a long A sound and sound like A. Right? So if you are ever unsure of how the word is pronounced while you're reading, you should try both pronunciations, so with a long E or with a long A, until you hear a word that you recognize. So sometimes I run into this error and I have to double check what I'm reading to make sure I'm saying the word correctly, and that is very okay to do. It is okay to make a mistake and read the word incorrectly. You are going back to your mistake. And you want to make sure that you have the word pronounced correctly when you're reading it, so you know the definition of the word and that the word makes sense with the sentence that it is in. So when we look at this first word, it has an IE. So this is brief. Brief. So brief is like short. Then we can look at the word down here in the fifth row. We have this one. So we know that the EI can either make the E sound or the A sound. So either this word is reen or it's rain. Right? So I have never heard of the word rain before, but I do know that the word rain is a word. It can also, there is a, right, so we know rain, like the weather type, is spelled R-A-I-N, and this rain is not that rain. This rain would be like a king or a queen of a kingdom. They are reigning over people. We can go to another word. Sometimes they just don't even fall into the category. So we can say forfeit, forfeit, and I know those two words sound similar to the word forfeit. If you're forfeiting something. Alright, so these are just different words that have IE or EI in them. For your assignment today in your Thursday folder. You will see it. It is Know It, Show It, words with IE or EI, and you are just going to fill in the blank to spell the word. So last Sunday we played softball in the new field. Is field spelled with an IE or is it spelled with an EI? And that is what you're going to do on all 8 of these. You are either going to put IE or you are going to put EI. Right? So that is one of your assignments. Your next assignment, if you saw it in this folder, well, you will have the complete the 3rd page of the document, plotting events, that's from your writing, and it will be right here. The next one is on HMH Ed. You are going to read All Summer in a Day. So it will be in your assignments. It will be called My Book All Summer in a Day, or My Book Prepare to Read All Summer in a Day. This is a fantasy. It's the type of story that we are going to read, that we are going to read today, and maybe it might even be the type of imaginative story that you are writing yourself. Authors of fantasy tell the story through the plot, right? So what we talked about in writing today, the main events of the story. The plot includes a conflict or problem and the resolution or how the problem is solved. So we all know what fantasy is. It might defy time or logic. And fantasies usually use sensory details and figurative language to help us visualize in the story. So your part of your assignment, other than the IE and EI, is to read this All Summer in a Day, right? This is your assignment. You have plenty of time to read it. You are going to go through and read it. And then when you get to the end, you are going to answer these 3 questions. You are going to go back to your assignments. You're going to hit I'm done with this. And then you have one last assignment that goes along with this, right? So your assignment is called My Book All Summer in a Day. And then you have your online assessment selection quiz All Summer in a Day, right? These are your 2 HMH Ed assignments. This is your 1 language arts assignment for today. Also, make sure you are checking on the last call assignments. If they have not already been taken out of rotation because they're already more than 2 weeks late, then they are still due. Make sure you have these done, including your personal narrative. I saw several people that started it and maybe even finished it on Google Docs, but you didn't submit it on Schoology. If you don't go back and submit it on here, then I won't know that you are actually finished. I need you to submit it so I can grade it. Please take your time on these assignments. Try your best. Get in any missing work that you can. Let's try to improve some grades. And also, have a good day.